Hi, this is Kevin Deal. Today we're going to talk about the PrimaLuna EVO 300 Power Amp, one of the finest power amps in the world regardless of price. And I want you to stay with me on this video because I'm going to teach you a lot of stuff and tell you how things work. So it's important that you pay attention. This is a 36 watt per channel amplifier, right? And people go, that's not that much power. And I got to get this out of the way. The only people that say that are the uninitiated that don't understand how amplifiers really work. Power doesn't mean anything. Go to the PrimaLuna website. There's a tab there that says Vital Info, and in there there's different topics where I cover a lot of things to teach you how stuff works so you make a really, really good buying decision for yourself. 36 watts per channel is a ton of power. Power means nothing. Power means the ability to play louder. It doesn't tell you anything about bandwidth. It doesn't tell you anything about bass. I'm going to tell you what does determine that in just a second. This amplifier comes with EL34s in it, and everybody loves EL34s. They're just amazing, but a lot of manufacturers don't like to use them. You know why? Because they're not as durable as a KT120 is. A KT120, you can run the bejesus out of them, and you can run 600 volts to the plates, and there's plenty of people that do that. They just beat them into the ground. EL34s are not like that, but they are so wonderful to listen to. But this amplifier only runs 440 volts to the plates. What does that mean? It means that you don't have shorts. It means that you don't have problems. It means you don't... Look, nobody ever gets out of tubes and goes back to solid state unless they have a problem. And they have problems because they bought the wrong amplifier. PrimaLuna has been designed to be a product that you can use every day. Now, if you don't want to run EL34s, you can put any tube you want in it because of adaptive auto bias. PrimaLuna invented adaptive auto bias in 2003, and they have improved it year after year after year. Now, what does bias mean? You got to make sure, go to that Vital tab at the PrimaLuna website and learn more about it, but just look at it this way. These tubes all have to work beautifully together, not just when they are idling, but when you press on the gas. Think of it as 4 carburetors, right? Adaptive auto bias looks at each tube constantly and keeps them in their perfect linear operating position. It reduces distortion by doing that, and it also extends the usable life of tubes because these tubes are not going to age equally. Every tube is different when it's made. Every one of them is going to age differently. PrimaLuna will make sure that you will be less likely to hear any sound degradation from uneven aging. Now, up in the front, you've got a bunch of 12AU7s. Why does it use 6 of them? Because they want to swing more voltage. These 2 tubes in the front, those are the gain tubes, and these other ones flanking it, those are called driver tubes. Now, it's more typical to use just 1 driver tube per channel. But this is an EVO 300. It's the big kahuna, right? So they wanted to add an additional pair of those tubes to be able to swing a little bit more voltage when it's needed. This is an ultra-linear amplifier. Most tube amplifiers made today are either ultralinear or some twist of the ultralinear design, and that means just that, ultralinear, the flattest response. Now, you hear people talk about the sound of triode, triode this, triode that, and look, I got it, right? Triode is really, really kind of cool. I like triode, but most of the time, I'm almost always listening in ultralinear. What's triode about? Triode amplifiers have a warmer sound to them, that golden glow, that, I don't want to call it syrupy, but just a little bit more of a relaxed presentation on top and bottom. And some people really like that. Females like it. I know my wife does because their ears are more sensitive. But only PrimaLuna allows you to change the operation of this amplifier from ultralinear to triode at the push of a button. Boom! Change the light from red to green, and now we're listening in that golden glow. And the power is also going to drop in half. So listen, if you buy one of these and you're trying to determine which one you like better, you got to remember something. When you switch from ultralinear to triode, you're cutting the power in half because you're only using 3 elements of the tube. That's what triode means, 3. So the power is going to drop in half, and when you cut the power in half, you're going to have 3 decibels less volume. So when you're switching from ultralinear to triode, make sure that you compensate when you're in triode by raising the volume up a little bit so you can do a fair comparison and determine which one you like better. Now, as I mentioned, you can put any tube you want in this. You can put KT88s, KT120s, KT150s. So if you want to play with different tubes, you can. You're going to get more power by putting a KT150 in. This is 36 watts per channel. If you put a KT150 in, you're going to go to 48 watts. What's that going to buy you? Nothing. Because there's very little difference between 36 watts and 48 watts. Remember, I told you wattage is not a really big deal. But I'm going to say this. If you put a KT120 in or a KT150, there's KT120s, you're only going to get 42 watts per channel because we run them so easy. I'm not kidding. Those tubes might live longer than you do, right? Because we're going to be running them super, super cool. I mean, you pop in KT120s or 150s and they're going to go for a jillion years. Oh my God, let's take a look at the inside of this thing. It is just, I just get so excited. This is the adaptive auto bias board, right? That's where the magic happens. That's the management system for the tubes. But not just that. It's also the protection circuitry. On other amplifiers, if you have a tube short, it could mean a trip to the shop. Some manufacturers are going to put a plate fuse in, some do not. Some of them use what's called a sacrificial resistor, which is crazy. That means if a tube's short, you got to put a new resistor in and get a soldering iron out. Forget that. On the PrimaLuna amps, what you have is a bad tube indicator in front of each power tube. So if a tube goes out, light turns on, the amplifier goes into protection. The beauty of that is it protects all the expensive components inside. All you got to do is put in another tube and turn the amp back on. There's a relay in here that's going to reset itself. And you don't even have to put in the right tube. Adaptive auto bias is so powerful. The engineering is so powerful. I could run an EL34 here, a KT88, a KT120, and a KT150. I mean, of course you wouldn't want to do that, but that's how powerful the engineering is in making sure that each tube is operating in a linear position. And it's all done outside of the signal path. There is no downside to it sonically, period. Oh my God, now look at over here, all the wiring. This is all made with point-to-point wiring, and PrimaLuna has always been about that. That's why PrimaLuna has such a high resale value. That's why original PrimaLuna, the Prologue one integrated from back in 2003, they sell for more now than they did when they retailed for back then. And it's the same thing here. Point-to-point wiring gives products an intrinsic value and they last longer. When you take tube sockets and you mount them to a PCB, you got a chance of breaking those traces on the printed circuit board. Not so with PrimaLuna. I want you to look at these porcelain sockets. I mean, look how cool that is. They're bolted to these ventilated chimneys, right? That are bolted to the chassis. That is built to allow heat to evacuate out of the inside of the chassis, and it's there to keep everything from flexing so nothing can break. The resistors that you see in here, you're going to see a bunch of pink ones, right? Well, the ones that are in the critical position, those are what's called TACMAN resistors. They're custom made in Japan. All the EVO 300 and 400 products have that. They are truly a custom made resistor. And TACMANs are known for their low noise and linearity. The point-to-point wiring is all done with Swiss-made, silver-plated, oxygen-free copper with a Teflon dielectric. Look at these capacitors. Great big Nichicon capacitors that are made in Japan. That's how you keep the power supply quiet. That's how you get these great dynamics. I love it. Now look, I talked to you about power not being important for bass response and for dynamics. In a tube amplifier, listen to what I'm going to tell you, the beginning and the end of a tube amp is going to be the output transformers. And PrimaLuna is famous because they design them in-house, they wind them in-house. And our output transformers are known to be super, super wide bandwidth. You can have all the power in the world. You could have 1,000 watts of power. If those output transformers don't have the bandwidth, you're not going to get bottom end and you're not going to get top end. Power is not important. Bandwidth is. And PrimaLuna is known for having the best output transformers. Now, what's really cool is this. You have 3 speaker taps on the output transformers, right? You've got an 8 ohm tap, a 4 ohm tap, an 8 ohm tap, and a 16 ohm tap. Don't go by what your speakers say. You want to make sure that you try each of those taps. Don't go to your speaker and look at the manual and say, it's an 8 ohm speaker, I'm going to use the 8 ohm tap. Try the 4 ohm tap, try the 16 ohm tap. Use the one that sounds best, because speakers are not 8 ohms. When they say they're 8 ohms, that's just what they say. I mean, the impedance curves goes all over the place, especially some speakers, it goes all over the place, right? You want to use the tap that sounds best. Now, this amplifier can be run in stereo or mono. So it's 36 watts per channel in stereo, 72 watts in mono. And the beauty of that is this. That 16 ohm tap goes to 8, the 8 goes to 4, and the 4 ohm tap goes to 2 ohms. So if you've got some crazy ribbon speakers, you know, or some crazy electrostats, or some weird design that's got a really low speaker impedance, it's going to rock your world. Now, new on this amplifier is XLR in, and PrimaLuna wanted to do it the right way. They could have done it with just... There are manufacturers that will literally just put a little jumper across an XLR to allow it to work. Other companies will use ICs. And that's a nice way to do it, but PrimaLuna did it the best way. It's transformer coupled in a shielded transformer, and they are bitchin' transformers, and I applaud them for that. It was very, very expensive to do, but they did it. Now let's talk about this little box right here and the power transformer. The EVO 300 compared to the Dialog Premium, which by the way was considered to be one of the greatest power amps ever made. It does have, the new model has some improvements in the power supply, but true to all PrimaLunas, the power transformer is a toroid. Every PrimaLuna product has toroidal power transformers. Toroids are the gold standard. They are very expensive to make, but the beauty of them is that they don't radiate EMI outside of what's called the core of the donut. It helps to keep things quiet. But to make sure it's quiet, PrimaLuna power transformers, since day one, have been potted and shielded. They are placed into a non-microphonic resin and then placed into a mu metal shield in the case of this amp. And that helps to protect the part because it's such an expensive part, but just keep things quiet. But they went a step further. On EVO 300 and 400 products, they come with something called the AC offset killer. Now, PrimaLuna's parent company, Durab Audio, invented this a long time before PrimaLuna was founded, and they sold it as a separate product. Under certain circumstances, in some homes, transformers can hum, and maybe you've experienced that, where the power transformer hums in your home. What this circuit is about is trying to reduce mechanical hum. And there are companies that sell this as a separate product now. They sell it as something that's built into power cords too. And they cost anywhere from $500 to $1,000, but only PrimaLuna includes it into their amplifiers. Something else that's new on the new model, you know, I already told you there's a relay on the adaptive auto bias board. They also added a Doomsday Fuse, just in case of really bizarre occurrences. I've never actually seen anybody have to replace this fuse. But you know, the whole idea of this product was getting you something that you can take home and use it. We didn't make these as a museum piece to be looked at. It's made to be used and have fun with. The chassis, 5 coats of hand rub finish. So many companies use flat black, flat silver, or that pebble finish stuff. And the reason they do that is to hide poor metalwork. No, this is an automotive finish. And then look at this cage. I mean, with the glass panels on the side, I mean, it's just gorgeous. You know, I love leaving the cage on. Now, if you put KT150s in it, you can't use the cage because KT150s stick up too high. And then just these little details, like on the bottom feet on the new Evolution products, you know, because they're rubber feet, well, rubber can react sometimes with the finish with wood finishes. Well, they put a little slipper sheet on top of the feet to just protect the finishes in your home. Who does that? PrimaLuna does that. Look at the remote. I mean, the new remotes, the new faceplate, they've just got rounded edges and they have this wonderful tactile. This isn't some cheap plastic remote. It's a beautiful machined remote. And then they use neoprene rings on the end. Why do they do that? To protect your furniture, to keep things from getting damaged. This is something that there's so much thought that goes into it, and that's why people buy them and they keep them, you know, and they're proud of them. And I mean, if you've got an old PrimaLuna, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, we sell a lot of them. People just don't get rid of them. Look, make sure that you go to your local PrimaLuna dealer. I think that every town is better if they have a record store and a hi-fi store. Go to the PrimaLuna website, go to that tab that says Vital Info, learn about what you're buying. Don't buy any tube amp or preamp without going to Google Images. Type in the model number of what you want to buy, go to Images, make sure that it weighs something. This is 66 pounds. And there's something to be said about that. We don't believe in voodoo. We believe in parts and engineering and giving you something for your money. And these people that say, oh, well, we like minimalist designs. Well, if it's a minimalist design with hardly any parts, why are you charging more money for it? It makes no sense. Get something for your money. Make sure that you hold me to my word on this stuff and hold me to task and investigate what you buy. That's what PrimaLuna has always been about. And that's why they say it's music illuminated. Thanks.